The 100-year conflict. Why Israel and the Middle East are always at war. For more than a century, the Middle East has been one of the most unstable regions in the world. Wars, revolutions, and conflicts that never truly end. At the center of many of these tensions lies a small country, Israel. But how did this conflict begin? And why are Israel and Iran, two countries that don't even share a border, now enemies on the brink of war? To understand today's tensions, we must go back more than 100 years. Before World War I, most of the Middle East was controlled by the Ottoman Empire. For centuries, Jews, Muslims, and Christians lived across the region under Ottoman rule. But after the Ottoman Empire collapsed in 1918, the map of the Middle East changed dramatically. The British Empire took control of a region called Palestine, the land where modern-day Israel and Palestine are located. Around this time, a movement known as Zionism began to grow. Zionism was the belief that Jewish people should have their own homeland after centuries of persecution in Europe. Many Jews believed their historic homeland was in Palestine. So during the early 1900s, Jewish immigration to the region began to increase. However, Palestine was already home to a large Arab population. As more Jewish communities arrived, tensions between Arabs and Jews began to rise. Violence between the two sides became increasingly common. Then, after World War II and the horrors of the Holocaust, global support for a Jewish homeland increased dramatically. In 1947, the United Nations proposed a plan to divide Palestine into two separate states, one Jewish state and one Arab state. But the Arab nations rejected the plan. In 1948, Israel declared independence. Within hours, several Arab countries, including Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, and Lebanon, launched a military invasion. This became the first Arab-Israeli war. Against many expectations, Israel survived the attack and even expanded its territory. But hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were displaced from their homes. This moment became one of the most painful and defining events in Middle Eastern history. Over the next few decades, Israel fought several major wars with neighboring Arab countries. In 1967, the Six-Day War dramatically changed the region. In just 6 days, Israel defeated several Arab armies and captured territories, including the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem. These areas remain at the center of conflict today. Then, in 1973, Egypt and Syria launched a surprise attack on Israel during the Jewish holiday of Yom Kippur. Although Israel eventually pushed back the attack, the war showed how fragile the region remained. But interestingly, during much of this time, Israel and Iran were not enemies. In fact, they were quiet allies. Before 1979, Iran was ruled by a pro-Western monarch known as the Shah. Under his rule, Iran maintained economic and strategic ties with Israel. But everything changed in 1979. That year, the Iranian Revolution overthrew the Shah and replaced him with an Islamic government. The new leadership saw Israel not as an ally, but as an enemy. Iran's leaders openly called for the destruction of Israel and began supporting groups opposed to it. Over time, Iran built alliances with armed groups across the region. These included Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Gaza. Israel viewed these groups as major security threats. This led to what many experts call a shadow war. Instead of fighting directly, Israel and Iran attacked each other indirectly. Israel launched airstrikes against Iranian targets in Syria. Iran supported militias and proxy forces around Israel's borders. Cyber attacks, assassinations, and covert operations became common. For decades, the two countries fought a silent and indirect war, but tensions have continued to rise. One of the biggest concerns for Israel is Iran's nuclear program. Israel fears that if Iran develops nuclear weapons, it could threaten the entire region. Iran insists its nuclear program is peaceful. However, distrust between the two nations remains extremely high. In recent years, conflicts involving Gaza, Hezbollah, and other regional groups have pushed tensions even further. What was once a hidden conflict between Israel and Iran is now becoming more visible. Many analysts warn that if the situation escalates further, it could trigger a much larger regional war. A war involving not only Israel and Iran, but potentially the United States, Arab nations, and many other global powers. So when people ask why the Middle East seems trapped in endless conflict, the answer lies in history. More than a century of competing claims, wars, political revolutions, and deep religious and national identities. And until these complex issues are resolved, the conflict between Israel, Iran, and the wider Middle East may continue to shape global politics for